But I have to say that the last port of call for thousands of families over the last number of years was the Master's Court, where he checked the paperwork from banks and indeed from borrowers, and where he forced the banks to correct the paperwork or to acknowledge that their paperwork wasn't adequate enough to press the charge against the individual before the court. He has now been removed from that task by the President of the High Court. And I would say it is an absolute scandal. Most of these individuals lay litigants, by the way. And having done that and done this state a hell of a service, and has stood by the fair to the banks, fair to the borrowers, creating a level playing field, we need to offer full protection for the individuals who are trying their best to make a deal to get out of the problems that they have. Similar to what we did for the banks. We bailed them out, we put them back in business, and let me tell you now, Minister, that they are now beginning to treat business people, borrowers, and those that are in distress in the same disgraceful manner that had treated them before. It didn't take them long to get back on their feet and to begin to turn around then and treat people in a way that we did not expect. And I would encourage you, Minister, to please examine this bill. If you're not going to support it, give us an alternative. Give us an alternative. And tell the central bank they also have a job to look after the consumer in this case, which they are not doing. And then, to try and compound the problem for the Master, there's certain comments made by other judges and put out into the public domain to discredit him. A typical act of trying to destroy the messenger.
Should you, and ultimately the people, will it, the intentions of the drafters in 1937, as reflected in the Constitution's preamble, that the dignity and the freedom of the individual be assured, can be reinvigorated. That the Constitution, too, can be given a new birth of freedom, which will refresh our democracy, renew our commitment to the protection of human rights, and above all, rekindle a civic pride in our state and its fundamental law, and hold out fresh hope for better times in the future.
But before we get to our next topic, I just want to check with you, Ian Keogh, because we got a tweet in from Councillor John Lahey of Renua saying the removal of the Master of the High Court, Ed Honohan, has reduced the capacity of the courts to help those who are victims of mortgage arrears. Unfortunately, vulture funds and banks are back in business in rural Ireland. How significant is this removal of Ed Honohan?
I actually think it's really significant, and it was something I was surprised didn't get more attention last week. I mean, one of the biggest reasons we haven't had the tsunami of repossessions has been the acrobatics that Ed Honohan goes on in the Master's Court, where he comes up with ever more imaginative ways of stalling repossession cases. Deliberately, it's a strategy by using the law, by using procedure. If you go down there, it's great theatre as you watch the banks and the financial institutions and the vulture funds getting stymied. I'd be really interested now, and he's certainly kept more people in their homes, I would argue, than maybe St Vincent de Paul in the last couple of years. Be really interesting now to track the level of repossessions, which admittedly been small to date, versus what happens when it goes to the more formalised procedures of the High Court. And I think the number will certainly go up and up.
We'll watch that with great interest. Now, it hit the head.